On Ebert and Roeper, Snoop Dogg seeks revenge from beyond in Bone.
Also, Kevin Kline reconnects with ex-wife Kristen Scott Thomas in Life as a House.
And psychiatrist Jeff Bridges and mental patient Kevin Spacey are worlds apart in K-Pax.
Why did you want to come to our planet?
I'd never been to a Class BA-3 planet before.
Class BA-3?
Kevin Spacey says he's from another solar system, but psychiatrist Jeff Bridges doubts it in K-Pax, one of 6 new movies this week. I'm Richard Roeper.
And I'm Roger Ebert. In K-Pax, Kevin Spacey plays a mental patient named Prot, who says he's from a planet 1,000 light years away. His psychiatrist, played by Jeff Bridges, assumes, of course, that this is totally absurd, but Prot says things and does things which are very hard to explain. This is the most convincing delusional I've ever come across, says the doctor, but he remains convinced that Prot is a human being and tries to reason with him on that issue.
It's one thing to take an interest in your fellow patients. It's quite another to make them think that you can cure them.
You seem overly upset, Mark. To borrow a phrase from Navarro, you need to chill. For your information, all beings have the capacity to cure themselves, Mark. This is something we've known on K-Pax for millions of years.
Listen to me. On this planet, I'm a doctor, you're a patient.
The doctor takes Prot home with him for a picnic, and Prot establishes an instant rapport with the family dog.
Okay. She says she doesn't like it when you hide her favorite tennis shoe, and she doesn't hear so well on her left side, so don't sneak up on her anymore.
Anyone can claim to know what a dog is thinking, but astronomers are amazed by Prot's knowledge of the eccentric nature of the orbits in his home solar system.
I take it my calculations help explain the perturbations you've been seeing in the rotation pattern of your binary star.
So is Prot from another world, or what? The intriguing thing about K-Pax is how it builds a convincing case in favor of that possibility, and another case equally convincing against it. The film shows integrity in avoiding a cut-and-dried explanation for everything, and the scenes between Spacey and Bridges have the power of 2 smart men who are both convinced that they're obviously right. The middle ward includes the usual cuckoo's nest of colorful, lovable, and eccentric patients who are always better company in the movies than they probably would be in real life. But Prot's relationship with them is intriguing, kind of Christ-like, you might almost say.
Yeah, I was completely swept up in this film. For the 2 hours I watched this movie, I wasn't thinking about anything else. Yeah. I didn't know if Kevin Spacey, if Prot was really from another planet or delusional.
And you still don't know.
And I still don't know, and I'm certainly not going to tell anybody, because I want people to see this film for the great acting and the really strong writing. And I thought it was interesting because Jeff Bridges is a successful psychiatrist. He's got a beautiful wife and kids, but he's the guy who's really lost at sea, and Prot, whoever he is really comfortable with who he is for much of this film.
You know, Spacey made a real good career move right at the beginning of his career when he decided to play the smartest guy in every movie.
Yeah.
And whenever we see Kevin Spacey, we know that we're going to be fascinated by his intelligence, by his kind of laid-back, analytical approach to things, the way he reasons with this psychiatrist in such a way that no matter what he says, it sounds as if you almost want to believe it.
This has echoes of a couple of Jeff Bridges movies, The Fisher King and then Starman, where he played the guy from another planet. And it's great to see him in a role like this, too. Two really strong actors at the top of their game.
That's right.
Okay, our next movie, and I'm not going to use the phrase great acting anywhere in this review. The film is called On the Line, and it's the first starring role for the in-sync pop idol with the soap opera name Lance Bass. In this limp-as-a-noodle romantic comedy, the blue-eyed crooner is so bland he makes Fabian and Rick Springfield look like Brando and De Niro. Of all the contrived boy-meets-girl setups in movie history, few have been as painful as this encounter between Chicago ad man Kevin, played by Bass, and the spunky Abby, played by Emmanuel Shrieky.
I'm so tired of being alone is a great Al Green song, but I Can't Get Next to You seems a little more appropriate right now.
Why is that?
I can't get next to you.
Kevin doesn't have Abby's name or number, so he conducts a citywide search for her with the help of a newspaper columnist. When scores of women respond, his friends offer to help.
Me and the guys were just thinking that you could do all these babes like a big, huge favor and let us take them out.
And how is that possibly a good idea? We screen the girls, and we help you find the girl.
Yes.
That was Joey Fatone, also of NSYNC, as Kevin's crudest friend. Now, Fatone has 2 or 3 mildly amusing moments, which is 2 or 3 more than we get when Kevin hangs with a crusty old copy guy, played by Jerry Stiller.
I got cataracts the size of cantaloupes, and I haven't had a decent bowel movement since the Reagan administration.
Okay.
And this being a Chicago movie with no imagination, everyone has to be a Cubs fan. Though when Stiller talks about the heartbreak of the 1969 playoffs, he's not being much of a Cubby fan, as the team didn't even come close to making the playoffs that year. So in addition to being unfunny and unoriginal, On the Line is also quite sloppy. It also has no connection to anything resembling our world. Kevin's search for Abby becomes front-page news and even merits live TV coverage for no reason. And as for the soundtrack, when Al Green sings, it's heaven, but when the NSYNC guys sing, it's boy band pap.
Pap or rhymes with pap.
Yeah, well, okay, fine.
You know, I did like the chemistry between the young people in those few fleeting moments when they were allowed to actually be on the screen together. But of course, this being a movie aimed at teenagers, you can't have a relationship. You got to have all the guys talking about the girls and all the girls talking about the guys. And most of the movie is those awful roommates sitting around with their inane dialogue. And then obviously when they're dating all these girls, the one who knows the guy she's out with isn't Kevin is the right girl. And at that point, the roommate should say, oh, you're the right girl. But no, this is an idiot plot in which he absolutely refuses to state the obvious. And I just wanted to rip the screen apart with frustration.
Well, and you're wrong. There's no chemistry between those two. They recite all the presidents from the first to the most recent, and then they decide they're in love with each other. So even that is a name.
I've never seen all the presidents recited before in a movie. I guess that's worth something, isn't it? Okay, coming up later, Kevin Kline searches for meaning in life as a house.
You're the most beautiful woman I've ever known.
What?
And coming up next, Snoop Dogg and Pam Grier in the Halloween thriller Bones.
Run, run!
Now this is your lifeline. Jimmy, there's a line across your lifeline.
Oh, must be my clothesline.
Pam Grier predicts an alarming future for Snoop Dogg in Bones, a Halloween thriller about some young people who want to turn a haunted house into a club. That scene takes place in the 1970s, where Jimmy Bones, played by Mr. Dogg, is a high-rolling numbers runner. Now it's the present day, and although Pam Grier's psychic is still living in the neighborhood and still telling fortunes, the kids ignore her warnings and start looking around the old house.
Be afraid. Be very.
Oh my God!
Bianca Lawson plays Grier's daughter, and Khalil Kane is the would-be club owner there. The club does open, and then terrifying events start to take place as the ghost of Jimmy Bones seeks revenge.
Are you looking to score?
Little brother. I got a natural high. A supernatural high.
Oh, you got a supernatural high, huh? Well, look, Eddie Mack don't like no wackos coming through our neighborhood playing that Rain Man stuff, okay?
Sure. Here it is.
Bones was directed by Ernest Dickerson, who gives the movie a high-tech horror look with weird special effects, and I gotta admit, the best shots I've ever seen of a dog projectile vomiting maggots. The first act of the movie is creepy and atmospheric, and I found myself being drawn in, but then Bones decides it wants to shock us instead of scare us, and it turns into a chaotic series of sensational scenes in which bad things happen and good people scream and old scores are settled. A good horror movie needs to have rules so we know where we stand. In Bones, anything can happen, and so what difference does it make?
Oh, you're missing it. This is a comedy. And it works so well at this. Oh, I mean, yeah, it's disgusting and it's vile and it's sometimes scary, and I loved it. And when you've got a guy, when you've got heads that have been severed and they're still talking, Roger, at that point, this movie is acknowledging that it's silly and crazy and just go for the ride.
I'm thinking the old severed head still talking routine.
Oh, I love this movie. This was a blast from start to finish.
The setup was kind of great, but then unfortunately, there's just a lot of real loud sound effects and things jumping out from the side of the screen and disgusting things, and it's just all
Pam Grier in a big afro, Snoop Dogg as a guy named Jimmy Bones. How could you not? You know, even the closing
that doesn't
song
persuade me right there. You haven't persuaded
me. Even the closing song, which uses like the ultimate swear word over and over. I kept thinking, we're a long way from Celine Dion, and my heart will go on now. I don't know if this song is going to get nominated for
I mean, everything is a long way from that, so I don't know what that proves.
Because, well, what it proves is this is a movie with a lot of energy and a lot of spirit that has a lot lot of fun with itself, and I just had a blast.
I am so very happy for you that you had a good time.
Thank you. Okay, coming up next, Kevin Kline contemplates life as a house.
And looking at the next week's openings, Monsters, Inc. tries to generate scream heat.
Roz, you're looking fabulous today. Is that a new haircut?
Listen. I want that thing out of your chin, okay? If you got nipple rings and navel rings, those come out too. And there's no makeup in my house. No glue sniffing, huffing, no pills, no grass.
Kevin Kline wants to spend what could be the last summer of his life building his dream home and rebuilding a relationship with his teenage son in Life as a House, a superbly acted weeper. Kline plays failed architect George Monroe, and that's Hayden Christensen, the future Anakin Skywalker, as Sam, who doesn't know his estranged father is critically ill. George has been bitter and closed off for years, but now he's determined to turn things around.
You're what I was most of my life, Sam. I see it in your eyes, in your sleep, in your answer to everything. You're barely alive.
I'm not even listening.
You know the great thing, though? Is that change can be so constant that you don't even feel the difference until there is one.
The exquisite Kristen Scott Thomas plays George's ex-wife Robin, now remarried with 2 young sons.
I was here 6 years, and I only hated 2.
Which 2?
First and the last.
Why the first and the last?
First because I wasn't sure you really loved me, and the last because I wasn't sure I really loved you.
As Sam starts to come around and the house takes shape, Robin finds an excuse to stop by nearly every day.
The thing about me being the most beautiful person, what was that? Hmm?
That was the truth.
You've never said that before.
I might say a lot of things I've never said before.
The rebirth of the romance is bittersweet, obviously because George is sick, but also because George and Robin and their son get a glimpse of the road not taken. Life as a House gets sidetracked by subplots about a creepy neighbor who hates George's dog and a hot-to-trot mother-daughter next-door neighbor team played by Mary Steenburgen and Jenna Malone. And it takes a huge leap of faith to believe George would live in a shack for so many years in this prized cul-de-sac in idyllic Palos Verdes. But I'm going to recommend this movie because Kline, Thomas, and Christensen create vivid and fully realized characters, making this one of the most effective family dramas of the year.
I don't quite recommend it, although I agree with you about the performances, and especially those 3 that you mentioned. On the other hand, the movie panders to us by not staying true to its central thrust, but throwing in all this other stuff. There's a scene where a guy is up on the roof and he sees somebody come out of the house next door, and he's so shocked he falls off the roof. And that does, see, that breaks the tone. That breaks the kind of concentration.
That is true.
And the whole scene involving the horrible neighbor and the surprise about him is set up in such a way that you realize suddenly this movie is not just going to solve 1 or 2 problems, it's going to solve the problems of every single person in the movie.
They could have tried.
He's got 6 months of severance pay, and that's enough to tear down a house and build a new one, and the most expensive
Well, that didn't bother me so much, but I mean, we're not that far apart on this. I am recommending because Kevin Kline is so good, as is Kristen Scott Thomas, and the kids. This Hayden Christensen shows that he's going to be a really, I think, a really good, interesting character in the Star Wars movie. So because of the performances and the main story, I'm recommending it, though I don't disagree with what you're saying about the supporting players.
Then we're almost in agreement, because the central story is terrific, and it's surrounded by...
Go see it for Kevin Kline.
By shameful pandering. Okay, our next film is named Donnie Darko, and it tells the story of a smart, likable, disturbed teenager named Donnie Darko, who receives regular visits from a large creature looking like a demon crossed with a rabbit. One night, the creature inspires him to sleepwalk, which is just as well because a jet engine from a 747 falls through his bedroom. Now, that's funny because no airline reports a missing engine. He tells his therapist, played by Catherine Ross, about his nighttime visitor.
Then he said that the world was coming to an end.
Do you think the world is coming to an end?
No. That's stupid.
Drew Barrymore plays his English teacher who asks what he learned from his near miss with the jet engine.
What is Graham Greene trying to communicate with this passage? Why did the children break into Old Misery's house?
Well, they say it right when they flood the house and they tear it to shreds that, like, destruction is a form of creation, so the fact that they burn the money is ironic. They just want to see what happens when they tear the world apart.
Donnie becomes convinced time travel is somehow involved and confides in his new girlfriend, played by Jenna Malone.
I've been seeing stuff, like a lot of really messed up stuff. And there are chapters in that book that describe the stuff I've been seeing, and it can't just be a coincidence.
Donnie Darko is a first film by Richard Kelly, who's only 26 years old and proves he can write and direct well, and who works with the talented actor Jake Gyllenhaal to create a character who doesn't seem delusional so much as under attack by the universe. The build-up of this film is so effective and the sly humor is so well worked in with the suspense that it's kind of disappointing how the story falls apart at the end. I didn't want a solution, but I wanted some kind of closure, and the film feels unfinished and unresolved. I'm right on the edge with this one. I guess it's a tribute to Kelly that he left me expecting more. A marginal thumbs down with some admiration.
Well, I have more admiration. I'm going thumbs up because I did like the way, I was impressed by the way this hodgepodge of wild ideas and different possibilities, I was impressed by the way it was brought together. It's an interesting movie, it's a dark movie, it's a strange movie, so I'm recommending it.
Would it be fair for me to tell people you should go because you're going to enjoy everything until the last 15 or 20
Well, it'd
minutes?
be fair because that's how you feel. I'm going to say that they're going to enjoy all
I like
of it.
that too. Okay.
All right. Okay, coming up next, a movie that remaps the frontiers of animation is in our video spotlight.
Ebert and Roeper's Video Spotlight is brought to you by Nestle Raisinets. Try Raisinets in new, convenient, resealable bags.
Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within, was supposed to be one of the pioneer films of the 21st century. As the first full-length, photorealistic animated movie, this $137 million sci-fi epic was hyped as a whole new dimension in storytelling. Now, I thought it delivered on all those fronts beautifully, but the film echoed through mostly empty theaters, crash landing as one of the biggest bombs of the summer of 2001. But now it's out in a lavish 2-disc DVD, and the story begins with a dream. Ming-Na gives voice to Aki Ross, a scientist in the year 2065 who's trying to solve a riddle that will save planet Earth from utter extinction. This sequence is set in what's called Old New York City, which eerily mirrors a portion of New York as we now know it.
Where are you?
Features on Disc 2 include an interactive documentary, an alternate opening sequence, and even some outtakes featuring the characters sneezing, tripping, and accidentally killing each other. Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within is a groundbreaking film that deserves a second chance, and it's in my video spotlight.
And it'll be in mine, too. When we come back, is K-Pax an uncredited remake? The movie Answer Man is next. The movie Answer Man has received questions about the similarities between K-Pax and Man Facing Southeast, a 1986 film from Argentina. I have now seen both films. They are very similar and very different. Both are about a mental patient who says he's from another planet. Both involve a psychiatrist who grows personally involved in the case. Both patients know amazing things and take notes in hieroglyphics. Both films end with the same clinical diagnosis. In both films, the other patients believe the man's story, and yet as many details are different as similar between the films, and their overall tones are quite distinct. Seeing them both was a reminder of how the story is only the starting place for a movie. It's not what it's about, it's how it's about it.
Okay, recapping this week's movies, 2 thumbs up for K-Pax, 2 thumbs down for On the Line, a split decision on Bones, another split on Life is a House, and another split on Donnie Darko. Also opening this week is 13 Ghosts, a ridiculous horror flick that's about as frightening as a child's Casper the Ghost costume the day after Halloween. In the long history of haunted house movies, no haunted house has been this ridiculous, this confusing, or this stupid.
What are you talking about? Basilius' device. We're in the middle of a machine designed by the devil and powered by the dead.
I agree with every one of those adjectives, and I would add that the movie is painful to watch and hear because of its flash frames and its volume. All of the art direction, costume, and sets are good. Okay, next week we'll be back with John Travolta and Vince Vaughn squaring off in Domestic Disturbance, and until then, the balcony is closed.
You know, Kevin Spacey, I hope he has a 50-year career in movies, but I think when we look back, we'll look at the late 90s and the first part of this century as the prime of his career. One role after another, he's so good.
You know, his name on the marquee is almost a guarantee it's not going to be a stupid movie.
CD players really eat your batteries and your money, so feed yours Rayovac Maximum. Lasts as long as standard Duracell and Energizer for less. Rayovac.
These babies were conceived using the Clear Plan Easy Fertility Monitor. It identifies more fertile days each cycle than any leading method. Clear Plan, clear results.
Rent the greatest thrills and chills just in time for Halloween. Check out Richard Roeper's picks for the top scary movies available at your neighborhood Blockbuster store. Blockbuster, bringing entertainment home.
Closed captioning for Ebert and Roeper is brought to you by...
Brake sales don't come any bigger. Get 50% off lifetime brake pads and shoes at Meineke.
At Meineke, you won't pay a lot, but you'll get a lot.